to the Pulse of Spokane. Join us for the latest in news, views, and conversation with community leaders. The Pulse of Spokane is brought to you in part by Homes for You, Well Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Firefighters Local 29. Now, put your finger on the Pulse of Spokane.
It's October 29th. Welcome to the Pulse of Spokane. I'm Kent Adams. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you survived a little bit of snow and wind last night. Actually, it wasn't so bad on the snow as it was with the wind, and my wife kept peering out to make sure that the last tree that hasn't fallen didn't fall on us last night. Crazy time of year, a crazy summer with basically a warm summer, not a hot summer. Here we are. That's kind of, I think, counting about the third little snowfall we've had. Well, actually, we had a really good snowfall a couple weeks ago. We've got a great program today. I'm happy to have someone who's running for school board. Sometimes, we were just talking before we went on the air, sometimes you go through your ballot and all of a sudden realize that there are 1 or 2 or 3 school board positions available. We sometimes forget that, especially with some of the crazy races going on for mayor and president of the city council and so forth. They tend to outweigh some of the other, what I would call very important races, and school board is very important. So Katey Treloar is here to talk about her race and hopefully win in a week from today, right? All right. And then we have Stephanie Butler with Live Real Estate, and we're going to talk to her about what it's like to be a real estate agent and what she goes through and all of that when she's on. Next on Spokane Talks, Pulse program for October 29th.
Once again, it's that time of year. Local 29 is down here at River Park Square for the annual Christmas tree build. This year, we just had an overwhelming outpouring of support from our membership. It took just a little over 10 hours with about 30 volunteers.
Well, the tree is 50 feet tall. It has a 4-foot star on it, has 10,000 LED lights, and roughly 2,700 ornaments and 869 branches.
The tree is centrally located here in the atrium of River Park Square. It's one of the big attractions here throughout the month of December. Santa sets up shop out front down here for all the kids to come down and visit. It's just another great event for Local 29 to have the opportunity to give back to our community.
Well, welcome back. Katey, yes. You stepped out from being a parent. You have 2 boys, right?
Boys.
You've
yes.
been a teacher,
yes.
so you've been in the classroom.
I have.
And where did you go to school?
I graduated from Ferris here in Spokane High School, and then did my undergrad and graduate work at Gonzaga University.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yes.
They have a great is it a football team
football,
or basketball?
Basketball.
Okay.
Basketball, yes.
Well, their football team hasn't lost a game since the early 50s. Okay. I mentioned in the open that sometimes between referendums and this was a long ballot because
Yes.
I voted last Saturday, I think it was.
Yes.
Usually I vote right away within 24 hours, but there were so many things I had to spend some time to go through them. But sometimes we forget about perhaps voting for something that contributes to our most important asset in the community, and that's our kids. That's our future. And the school board gets overlooked. And there have been some things across the state as well as here in Spokane that have irritated some parents
Yes.
and others in terms of giving out dollars and so forth. What brought you to step up? Because you could be a teacher, you could be at-home mom. I know you do some nonprofit things and leadership there. You could take the easy route.
I could.
But you stepped up because isn't it fun running for office?
Oh, I was not prepared. I did a lot of research about what it meant to be on the school board, months of the time and the commitment and the responsibility. I did not know what it meant to run a campaign. And
2 different things, aren't they?
Very, very different.
Yeah.
And, school board is a 6-year volunteer position.
Yes.
And we are, Spokane Public Schools is the 3rd largest employer in Spokane.
Yes.
A budget of $500 million.
$500 million. That's with a B.
$500 million, yes.
Okay.
And and 31,000 students. So it is a big responsibility and one that can't be taken lightly. And we need people to pay attention this round, especially because of the 5 positions on the board, 3 are on the ballot. So this will be a very young junior board, and it's.
I found it interesting and perhaps telling that none of the current board members decided to run for re-election.
Right, yeah. Well, and Dina Brower, who's and Sue Chapin both had been on the board for quite a long time,
right.
And Brian Newberry stepping down as well. So we'll have big shoes to fill. But I really think that as a mom of 2 young boys who are in Spokane Public Schools right now, I talk to teachers every day. I'm in the schools. I hear what's going on, and I feel like that's an important voice to bring to the school board, as well as my experience as a teacher. I think there's a lot of great ideas that the school board comes out with, but unless you have that voice of an educator on the board saying, gosh, that looks so good, but as a teacher, as someone that's been in the classroom, here are a few things we could tweak.
Right.
So we avoid those unintended consequences.
Yeah. You hear a lot. I'm just throwing out some things that I hear.
Yes.
You hear a lot that the Spokane Public Schools, as with other maybe school districts, is overloaded, heavy with administration. Are you finding that to be the case?
Well, I think we have to put if we're going to put our kids first, we have to put our teachers right up there with them.
Yeah.
And we need to do what's best for our teachers so that they can do what's best for our students. I've met with a lot of administrators, and they're doing a lot of work. The superintendent, she is at everything. She is at fundraisers for our district. She is around town meeting with local groups. So I think once I'm on the board and I can kind of see how that administration piece looks a little bit better, I'll have a better idea.
Sometimes it's easy to blame those folks downtown
right.
who are really getting your back as teachers and principals and so forth. And if they weren't there, think of the burden that would be shoved back out into all of the schools. I forget how many there are, but dozens and dozens of them.
Right. And I think, we have these great administrators. We just need to, as a board, hold them more accountable, just to be proactive instead of reactive. I think the budget, what happened with the budget last August, is a really good example of lack of communication and accountability. And I think as board members, we need to come in and step up and say, hey, there's some expectations that need to be met.
And I would personally fault the board last year for not stepping up and raising some questions, because there were those that I know of in the business community and other places who were raising their hands and saying that's not sustainable.
Right.
And I get it. Yes. Teachers should be well paid and recognized. They should be fired when they're not doing that, and there should be an easy route to do that. I mean, it comes both ways.
Right.
But you can't approve a budget that isn't sustainable.
Right.
And so you are big on following through with that, aren't you?
Sustainability, long-term planning, and developing a budget that we can rely on year after year instead of having to
panic every summer. Yes.
No more panicking. That's not good for our kids. That's not good for teachers. I was talking to one gal. She's the former union president, Maureen Ramos, and she talked about our district being like a 3-legged stool. And one of the legs is the union, one's the administration, and one's the board. And when everybody's working together, we have a very strong base. And so I hope to be that voice that brings everybody together, and so that we can work together and no finger pointing, just doing what's best for our kids.
There's a lot in our community of worry about safety.
Yes.
Okay? I think of everything from homelessness and the issue there, which is really a mental illness and a drug problem more than homeless, as you and I probably know it from before, that people are kicked out of their homes or that kind of thing. But there's also a big concern at the schools.
Right.
After all, we send, in my case, our grandkids, did send my kids to school, and there's an expectation that they're going to come home at the end of the day and be safe and everything else. And we've seen few, but we've seen the bad things that have happened across the country. Fortunately, they're not very often.
Right.
But how do you want to address that? Because
well, I think, our district paid for a very expensive audit last year, and Safe Haven came in. It's an independent nonprofit that came in and did an audit of safety and security in our district. And they've rolled out 48 suggestions for how we can make our schools safer. And one of those suggestions was just making sure that there's automatic defibrillators in all of our schools. And that's a simple one. And the district's working towards that. That'll be in every elementary, middle school, and high school, I think, by the end of the year. So there's a perfect example of something that we didn't know we needed, and now our kids are going to get it.
Good.
But they also did suggest 2 of the 48 suggestions were around developing a relationship with our police officers.
Yes.
And currently we have amazing resource officers, and they live in our high schools and our middle schools. They're not armed. And this report says our resource officers are doing great jobs building relationships with our kids, and to keep those things going, but at the same time having a relationship with our local PD, so that when we call them and they have to come into our schools, we already have a relationship. We know who's going to show up, and that those police officers have had the right trauma training, crisis intervention, de-escalation practices that are specific to children. So as a school board member, that's definitely something that I'm going to bring to the table and suggest that we talk about really firming up our relationship with
What
local
about
PD.
arming those police officers?
Well, police officers are already in our schools, not because they're contracted, but because they're called to our schools.
But you said they're not armed.
Well, our resource officers are not armed.
Oh, okay.
And so, no, I'm not in favor of arming any school employee. So our resource officers are employees of Spokane Public Schools.
Okay,
I'm
that's
just
a good distinction.
suggesting-
All right,
yes,
I'm learning.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm suggesting we don't arm our resource officers,
Okay.
but we definitely, like I said, firm up a contract or an MOU with the local SPD, because they are in our schools and they are armed.
Okay.
So let's make sure we know who's in our schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That really is telling, isn't it? I mean, it really is important. You mentioned, and I just got a kick out of this, that when you decided to run, you knew what the job was. You were prepared for that, but not as prepared for being a candidate.
No. Oh my gosh.
Tell me a story or something that you can tell that was kind of a real learning experience.
You know, I guess the hardest thing is asking for money. You have to raise money for your campaign, and I've never been good about that. Fundraising, I did a lot of nonprofit work.
Aren't you married?
I am. I have a hard time asking my husband for money, let alone people that I don't know very well.
I'll hear about that comment, I'm sure, Kent.
But I think I met with somebody, and he said, well, why is it so hard for you to ask for money? And I said, I've always been good at the organizing. I've been good at the planning, but asking for money, that's just not my forte.
Right.
And he said, but people need you. Our teachers need you. Our kids need you. You're not asking money for yourself. It's not like you're going to
pocket it.
Right. Yeah. You're not asking money for yourself. You're asking it really to do better for our schools and our kids and our teachers. And I thought, okay. I left kind of pumped up, like ready to go ask for some money, and that's kind of the story I have to keep in the back of my head as I have been fundraising, and I guess that has been a big...
I've fundraised for about 50 years, or more than that, and I really found the first time it was a little difficult. It's always difficult.
Right.
There's no way around it, But the fact is, if you believe in the cause, and it's not about you, it's about what you bring to the table and what you represent at the table on that board. If you believe in that, then it's not quite so hard.
Right.
And
just you have to keep that in the back of your mind.
I know.
Yeah,
I
and
know.
be ready
Easy to say,
And you know what? People don't, once they're asked, they really don't mind being asked, but it's just getting over that
What's the worst
initial-
thing they could say?
No.
I can't afford it right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you ask for other ways. You want to
Yeah.
wave signs or doorbell or,
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot.
Would you rather come out on a cold 16-degree morning and wave signs with me? $50 sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Yes.
Bet you could turn that.
Yes, you could.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Katey, I'm proud of you for stepping up. Okay. We need more young people to get involved. The fact that you're a parent, I think, means an awful lot. That just tells me so much. I already voted for you this last weekend, of course. I've endorsed you. I think you do a great job. You come with great ideas. You come not hinged with groups in town that may have one position or another.
Right.
You come with an open mind, and I think it's great. So go get them.
Thank you
a
so
week
much.
from today.
November 5th.
Yeah,
Yes, make
yeah.
sure.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay,
Yes, thank
good.
you.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Stephanie and talk about real estate right after this.
I love Spokane. It's where I've raised my family and run our business. But lately, I don't recognize it. Crime and open drug use take more of our city and our citizens every day. But it's not too late. I'm Cindy Wendell. I'm running for Spokane City Council President because it's time to set aside political agendas and start putting people first. Join me on November 5th. Together, we can fix the problems we face instead of ignoring them. I'm Cindy Wendell, and I approve this message.
Spokane Realtors are dedicated to helping you find the right place to live. We're more than 2,000 strong, small business men and women guiding you through this most important purchase. We're also your neighbors, giving back thousands in volunteer hours to make our community a better place. We believe owning a home helps you live longer, with stronger families and better neighborhoods. That's who we are, ready to help you find your way home. Call one today.
On the season premiere of Northwest Profiles, we make a special visit to the Hutton settlement in Spokane. It opened as an alternative to an orphanage in 1919, built by an orphan who struck it rich in Idaho's Silver Valley. Turns out it wasn't in a mine, but at the end of this road where Levi Hutton found the treasure of his life.
While it may look like a magical campus, the life-changing things that happen here are real.
Northwest Profiles, coming soon on KSBS.
My name is Brandy Peets, running for re-election to the Spokane Valley City Council. I'm committed to our Spokane Valley, and I stand strong for public safety, good roads, and government transparency. I would be honored to have your vote.
Well, it's time to switch from schools to real estate. Stephanie Butler, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's the market today?
Well, probably Spokane's market has been the most robust I have seen, or anyone has actually seen, in the history of Spokane for the past 2 years.
Wow.
We are at the top of where we've ever been.
And we come up
remarkable.
nationally in searches and everything else, too. I mean,
Yes.
it's not just in this region. We're the place to be.
We are the place to be.
Yeah.
And it's happening all over the country.
Yeah.
Smaller markets, secondary cities that are, along the East Coast and West Coast,
Yeah.
that are just in from the coast,
Yeah.
within a 5 to 8 hour
They don't
drive.
have the 405 traffic and things like that. I mean, I moved here 43 years ago from Los Angeles, okay, purposely. Okay, it was a town then. It's a little more of a city, but still I think of it as a town. But I remember commuting distances down there. Regularly would spend an hour to an hour and a half each way to work. Not the lifestyle to raise a family or have fun or get to a ski area. I'm not a skier, but you can get to a ski area in, 45, 50 minutes.
That's
I mean,
correct.
things like that. Down there, well, yes, I can get away for 3 days this weekend and go skiing, and you spend a day getting there and a
Right.
day coming home.
And those are factors that are just weighing in
Yeah.
with a lot of young people
Yeah.
who are looking for a lifestyle that they can really live.
Right.
They don't want to spend time in the car.
Right.
Some of them work remotely for the
Yes.
same firms that they worked in prior to moving
Right.
here. Some are making actual work changes. Others are starting companies or just completely starting over.
Well, they can move from a Seattle company, be making $100,000 over there, and be making $75,000 here and live so much better.
They can live so much better.
Yeah,
They really can, and they're looking for outdoor recreational
Yes,
opportunities.
yes.
That's a key factor. They want housing that is affordable, that price-wise, is workable.
Yes.
That they just found wasn't workable in Seattle or Los
Yeah.
Angeles or San Francisco, and they're just coming and coming. It seems to be almost nonstop.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it will continue.
Yeah, in the whole area, you think here, the Spokane area, as well as Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene?
Yes, I think this entire region, Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls.
What we call the metro area,
the metro
basically.
area,
Yeah.
even north, heading up north.
Okay.
Even past Meade, Colbert, all of that. We're just going to be one big region.
Yeah.
And it's it's such an attractive area with the skiing and the lakes and the lifestyle that young people are looking to it. Before, they didn't think Spokane had enough depth socially. Enough hipness, enough restaurants, enough music. And now they're realizing that they can come, and they're attracting their friends, and the word has spread.
Well, my wife and I joke about when we first got to town and we would go out for breakfast on Saturday, and our choices, were like Perkins and something else. Okay,
Right.
now you can even have sushi. I don't know why anyone would want sushi, but that's a whole nother issue. But you know what I mean? There are choices. Almost everything is available
and
here.
that's what young people are looking for.
Yeah, yes.
So, and the only problem I see is that the older folks, people in their
How come you looked right at
50s
me when you said, I'm kidding?
they're waiting
Yeah.
to sell their homes. Not everyone, but the bulk are waiting. So I think there's going to be a bit of a dump. A home dump.
Right about the time I'm ready to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Thanks
right.
a lot. Okay.
So that does worry me because they have an expectation of what
Based on right now, because you multiple offers and everything else.
Right.
But we know from history that isn't going to continue. I mean, there's going to be the up and down cycles and so forth. But I've got to ask you, what got you into this business? Why do you want to be a realtor?
Well, I wasn't really sure I wanted to be a realtor.
Okay.
I took probably 20 years off from work. Moved here from Portland via many other places, the East Coast and so forth, and wasn't working. Decided I wanted to go back to work. I have a master's degree in business, and it was during the downturn. It was during, the worst possible time.
You picked the right time.
But actually, that turned out to be a time where
you can learn the business.
Learning happens.
Yes.
So I totally had to understand what it was like to see a home that was completely in distress.
Yeah.
And sellers who were in distress. And I felt like I was really more or less becoming a social worker.
Yes.
And that's what
helping solve problems for them.
You have to help solve problems.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it be a home that's in distress or a high-end buyer or seller who's in a different place.
Right.
In each one of those places, on the extremes and everything in between, you're really helping people figure out their lives.
What do you specialize in?
I don't specialize in any one thing. I specialize in helping people make the best choice for them.
Okay.
I really take a lot of pride in that. And I think that's, if anyone knows me in real estate, they know that I take an enormous amount of time with people. I don't pressure people. I tell people, particularly buyers, when they're eager to purchase, never pressure yourself to make a decision.
Yeah.
There'll be another house tomorrow. If there's a multiple offer situation and you didn't get that house, or it just didn't work out, something else will work out.
Yes.
And I tell sellers that as well. It's a little bit more difficult with sellers now in the higher end because they really, we're approaching the colder weather. If they didn't get their home on in early spring, which is really
what's going to happen to me?
What's going to happen to me? And they need to take a breath because come February, which is really not that far off, their housing price will actually go up.
Oh, okay.
So we look upon the spring market starting right after the Super Bowl.
This last February, we had a dumping of snow, though.
Yes.
Yeah. Are
But
you planning on that this year?
Yeah. It's a good question. With who knows with our weather.
We don't control it, do we?
We don't control it, but so sellers get particularly a little nervous, but I really try to encourage them not to.
Yeah.
And at this time of year, some of the buyers become more aggressive, trying to get a deal, and I try to tell sellers to hold off, not to show any worries.
Yeah, don't panic.
Don't panic.
Yeah, unless you have to.
Unless you have to.
You have to move out of town or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
They worry about keeping the house going through the winter. It's empty. What if something goes wrong? The heat, that kind of thing.
Actually, my son bought a house a few years back. He's in a different house now, that they had turned off all the heat and everything, and when they turned it back on, pipes. Yeah. So he got new walls on the first floor, But there is always that fear, but it was taken care of because insurance and everything else covered. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, I have a website.
Okay.
StephanieButlerHomes.com, and I also have a website through my company, Live Real Estate.
Okay.
Phone number, email,
yes,
which is on the website.
Okay.
Texting is always the quickest and easy way.
Yeah.
The quickest, most efficient way to get in touch with any realtor in town.
Well, yeah, and isn't it today? Why are they calling me? Can't they just text me? Do you see that a lot these days? I don't want to talk to him.
Well,
but, yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
But most people feel most comfortable texting me.
I think you're right. I think you're right because they know they're not necessarily disturbing you. If you're with a client or something, you can see the message. You can call them back if they have an emergency. Right. But otherwise, it's not like seeing the phone ring or having it jiggle on your desk or something.
They also don't have to reveal that much about themselves. They can probably send out text to multiple agents, see how people respond, maybe have a little bit of an exchange going back and forth, and then they know,
now we know,
who they might want to talk to.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. Well, continued good luck.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm one of the things I love having on are people who enjoy what they do, and that shows. Okay, that's important to enjoy what you're doing, because we don't get a second time at this, do we?
No, this is a one time only.
Yeah, good. Well, hey, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much, Stephanie. Well, thanks for watching Pulse of Spokane. We'll see you next time right here.
Here at Creative Music Learning Center, we are dedicated to your learning no matter where you are on your journey. Whether you are a beginner, a casual player, or need some brushing up on technique, we are here for you. When you begin lessons with us, our teachers take the time to understand what kind of learner you are and how we can help you further your knowledge, offering a variety of instruments including piano, guitar, voice, violin, and more. We are here and ready to get started with you.
The economy is getting stronger, banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Think of North Idaho Events as your business development advisor. We produce events of all kinds: trade shows, themed expos, fundraisers, corporate workshops, and more. We will discover the most appropriate event that your company can most opportunistically shine. We provide the platform to feature local businesses in front of a high quantity of their ideal customer. Share your story with April Howard over a cup of coffee so she can most appropriately guide you and your business into new heights and create a most mutually beneficial relationship. Spokane is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksMedia.com, which is solely responsible for its content. The Pulse of Spokane is brought to you in part by Homes for You, Well-Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Firefighters Local 29. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or hear this program again on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com.